Alright guys, welcome back to the Boundary Riders Podcast. New episode today is episode 26, so nearly halfway to the half ton, which will probably hit the start of next season. But nonetheless, we actually do have our co-host Jack over here. Do you even run your Instagram channel anymore?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, you do? Okay, so that's good. You're doing your betting. Obviously, this week was a massive one. Final 8 was not decided until the final match with GWS versus Carlton. We also saw Melbourne get a big win against the Swans, Port Adelaide secure their top 4 spot. Not secure the top 4 spot, but we get a good win against Richmond in the final week, and obviously Brisbane securing that top 2 spot with a win against St Kilda. How did you think the last round went? I think kind of everything fell into place towards the end of it, and I think all the 8 teams who got in the end probably deserved to be there.
I think it was the 8 that deserved it. I think it was the top 8 that deserved. You could say, the Bulldogs never deserved it.
Yeah.
No one could. Even I think a few Bulldog supporters could say they didn't deserve the top 8 spot. Yeah,
the amount of times that they were losing this year against teams that they should be beating, like West Coast and that.
Yeah.
I think the Giants, in their quest to find the top 8, should be there, and they deserve to be where they were. And they're almost in the end when Carlton kind of stopped, when they kind of knew they weren't going to win the game, and kind of just put the queue in the rack because they knew they were going to finish 5th and there was no way of dropping down. They almost took 6th spot. They almost took a home final because of the win. If they kicked a couple more goals and kept on going, the Giants, they'd very well have had a home final in Sydney, but they just fell short in the end, and St Kilda will host that home final.
Yeah, which is what St Kilda fans would have prayed for.
Yeah, but of course, if you guys haven't seen it, we have the fixture for the finals of the first week. Now, of course, we will have the week off, so we won't be doing our tips for the first round of the finals. We may actually just do like a little, maybe somewhat guess of what we think so far. We basically have the first round of the finals coming, and on Thursday night, September the 7th, we will have Collingwood, who finished first, against Melbourne at the MCG, who finished 4th. On Friday night, we have Carlton in the first elimination final, who finished 5th, against the Sydney Swans, who finished 8th. On Saturday afternoon, or Saturday twilight, sort of, at the 3:20 fixture for Victoria and Adelaide, here it's 2:50, is the second elimination final with St Kilda, who finished 6th, against GWS, who finished 7th, at the MCG. And the final game of the first round of the finals will be the second qualifying final, which is the Brisbane Lions, who finished 2nd, against Port Adelaide, who finished 3rd at the Gabba. I think we do have some pretty big finals coming up, but as of course we usually do, we'll be doing the review of round 24. Now, I used to try to get these out a day earlier, but I was a bit tired because I had my wedding on Saturday. So, nonetheless, we started with Friday night footy, which was Essendon versus Collingwood, and Essendon just to fall into that hole.
They played like they didn't care. They knew they were done. They just didn't care.
Yeah.
And they played like that for most of the second half of the season, to be honest.
Yeah. Now, you were the one who gave the votes for this game, so your votes were 3 votes to Jordan De Goey, 2 votes to Jack Ginnivan, and the 1 vote to Tom Mitchell. Do you want to explain your votes?
Yeah, to begin with, De Goey with the 3, he just dominated pretty much most of the match. Pretty much the first 3 quarters, he dominated out the middle, and he just did everything, really. Besides with Ginnivan, it's sad because I think with all the inclusions that they may get back in the first week of finals, he may not even be in the best 22. He might be the sub in that first qualifying final, which is maybe a bit unlucky, but he played really well, and he seems to get the form back that he had last year. Yeah, he had last year. And Tom Mitchell, he got the 1 vote. He did get a lot of centre clearances in that match, and he may not have. And he had a lot of disposals as well, which was pretty good in his match.
He did hit quite a wall throughout the mid-season and has been subbed a few times for Collingwood. It will be interesting to see with those inclusions coming back if he still holds his spot in the lineup or he possibly gets pushed out, maybe end up as a sub in that first final.
Well, they're saying that Nick Dacos is 50-50 to play the first final, so that'll be an interesting one. I think it's his spot that it's up for grabs
at this stage.
Tom Mitchell, though, yeah.
After that, we get to one of the dead rubbers of round 24, which was Hawthorn versus Fremantle in Melbourne at the MCG. And it was Fremantle who came out on top by 37 points. Again, you gave the votes here. So the 3 votes went to Caleb Sarong, 2 votes to Andrew Brayshaw, and the 1 vote to Dylan Moore. So pretty dead rubber in the end for both sides. Obviously, not much could be done. Maybe a couple of ladder positions up and down, but again, really wasn't much on the line for both teams. But I think Fremantle are one of the teams next season who can definitely bounce back.
Yeah.
And I guess it is good to see them end the season on a high. And I think
travelling to Melbourne and getting that win is just some more experience there, really.
Yeah. So after that, we get to another dead rubber, but it was North Melbourne who finally broke their losing streak of 21 games in a row to drop their number one draft pick.
Yeah, so
but I mean, it is good. It is good to see them actually go out and perform well and not just play for the draft pick. I guess
you can see Clarkson during the week though, during the press conferences, he was ropeable about how the Gold Coast were getting concession picks, academy picks that the North Melbourne were never getting a priority pick, so they were always going to respond, I thought.
Yeah, I think it is kind of crap as well that's happened. And also, when we think about those couple of drafts that North Melbourne have been right down the ladder with their number one picks,
they've given it up.
They've had to either lose them or they've lost their players because of things like Nick Dacos, who went to Collingwood, obviously as a father's son. We obviously had as well Aaron Cadman. Well, no, sorry. Luke Davies Jr. Ugle Hagen. My God, moron. Ugle Hagen obviously got picked up by the Bulldogs as a as an academy player.
Yeah.
So they have lost a few of their first round number one draft picks, and also James Horne-Francis, who obviously left.
Yeah, but you got to also think that they also traded pick one last year for the generational forward that everyone thinks Aaron Cadman's going to be, and they gave up for another midfielder, which they've got plenty of. So I think I still believe they still stuff that.
And they still had a chance as well a couple of years ago when Logan McDonald was getting picked up by the Sydney Swans. Yeah. They had a chance to pick him up, but they decided to get Will Phillips. And Will Phillips has came along a little bit this year, but I think Logan McDonald is definitely going to be a very good forward for the Sydney Swans.
They have the forward in Larkey, which we
will get to his performance in a second.
Yeah, but he needs a partner, and he just doesn't have that. And he's got Zerha, who's been injured all season, and
isn't a key forward either.
He's not a key forward. He's
at best.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which is nothing against him, but obviously he's not big enough and tall enough to be a key position forward.
Yeah.
But anyway, Nick Larkey was massive on this game. Kicked 9 goals against a very good defence in the Gold Coast. Probably their best line in my opinion.
Yeah.
Very underrated defence, and he was able to kick 9 goals. I mean, I guess you can say the Gold Coast didn't have much to play for here. They're obviously thinking about next season with Damien Hardwick. So this was kind of a dead rubber for them. Going down to Tasmania, they probably weren't really going down there for much other than just a little bit of pride, which they would kind of let go. They kind of just let North Melbourne run away with this one. But with Nick Larkey getting 9 goals, it does beg the question if he's been probably the best performing forward of the year, because not taking away too much from Taylor Walker and Charlie Curnow, because they both have been very good this year, and I think they both deserve to take the 2 All-Australian full forward and centre-half forward spots. But Nick Larkey hasn't had the luxury of having a team that will get the ball to him cleanly.
Yeah.
Have not had the luxury of playing. It's the likes of West Coast. Well, sorry, they have had the likes of playing West Coast twice. They haven't had the luxury of having 2 and sometimes even 3 defenders standing in front of him. To still kick 70 goals is a massive achievement for him, and I am actually quite surprised that not one of these clubs in the AFL have not offered him the bank.
Yeah,
I'm very surprised that has not happened, because he is going to be in a couple more years. If North Melbourne, if he was in a better team right now, he would be winning the Coleman Medal. And if we take a look at the statistics, which I think even you told me, that Nick Larkey would have won the Brownlow Medal, the Coleman Medal, if West Coast and West Coast games were taken out of...
and North Melbourne games.
And North Melbourne games were taken out of the equation for goals. So, and it's also tough on Nick Larkey that he wasn't able to play against North Melbourne to get a couple of goals on the board for him. But yeah, that's pretty unlucky for him. Obviously, you've given him the 3 votes. 2 votes went to Taron Thomas, and the 1 vote went to Bailey Scott.
Yeah,
Scott. Yeah, so
he's actually had a very underrated year off the half forward wing. So with the amount of good wingmen that they've already been this season, Bailey Scott's I think played a really good season for North Melbourne.
Yeah. So good on him, and I think Nick Larkey, I think he's probably been one of them up there. I will be interested to see if he does get a spot in that All-Australian 22. He'll probably get in the 44.
40,
40. Oh, they did 44 last year.
Oh, well.
Yeah, but I think he very well could get in there. It's just a little bit unfortunate that I will say that Charlie Curnow, yep, he deserves it. He got the most amount of goals, but you can also see the fact that Taylor Walker and Charlie Curnow got 19 goals against them in the 2 games they had this year. So
is it really fair?
Well, I mean, you take the time and you get it. I mean, there have been some teams who haven't been able to convert it against West Coast, like Essendon, St Kilda as well. So, there are some teams who did have that opportunity and didn't take it. But I guess they did, and they've got to take them when they're at their strongest. So, yeah. Nonetheless, North Melbourne were able to beat Gold Coast pretty convincingly in the end, and were able to finish their season on a high. And for North Melbourne fans out there, hopefully Alistair Clarkson has a full pre-season, full year with this group, and maybe can bring them up a ladder a little bit. Yeah. Although I don't see it. But anyway, after that we get to one of the big games of round 24, which was Brisbane versus St Kilda. Brisbane were wayward for most of the afternoon, kicking 9 goals, 18, but were able to hold on against pretty good St Kilda lineup without Max King. They won by 12 points in the end, which were the 12 behinds they got in. The 12 extra scoring shots and 12 behinds they got against St Kilda. The votes went to Rowan Marshall with the 3 votes, Jared Berry with the 2, and Dane Zorko with the 1. So good to see Rowan Marshall getting 3 votes once again, and I think he should definitely be talked about now, especially as the All-Australian ruckman.
I think he is. I think he should be, because let's be honest, Tim English, he started well, but he's not been that great since all the Bulldogs players have been...
Yeah, basically since I think Bontempelli has carried them over the line for a lot of games in the second half of the year, and Tim English has definitely dropped off the face of the earth. And I think Rowan Marshall throughout the whole entire season has been the best ruckman. I think maybe they probably both get in there at this stage. Maybe one goes ruck, one goes interchange, which I think will happen. And I think Rowan Marshall's just had a massive year for St Kilda.
If you look at the stats, Rowan Marshall has, I think, had the 3rd most disposals by a ruckman in the last, I think it was decade, maybe 2 decades, but yeah.
I think he was definitely in the top 5 because there was Max Gawn.
He was 3rd. He was definitely 3rd. I remember that because.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I remember that. I think I remember seeing that where Brodie Grundy and Max Gawn were up in the top 2, and Dean Cox was down. I think 4th or 5th in there. So I think
he's got the stats behind him.
And he held that record, Dean Cox, for many, many years before basically the evolution of the ruckman came along. But nonetheless, Brisbane did well to win this game. I did watch a snippet of it for a bit and did listen to it on the radio for a little bit as well. And Brisbane did do very well to hold on in this game and just able to get in front in the end. And now they do host a home final, which is definitely what they need.
Yeah.
Because going down to Adelaide Oval in the first final would be pretty catastrophic. I don't think they could win from there. But playing at home, they've got all the advantages and are huge favourites in that one. After that, though, we get to a dead rubber for the Cats, but the Bulldogs had everything to play for, and they were able to get over the line. What I will say, though, is Geelong rested a lot of players for this game.
Geelong they played their second-rate team.
They didn't have any key... Tom Hawkins and Jeremy Cameron did not play in this one.
Yeah.
There was definitely farewelling a few champion players of the game. One of them was Isaac Smith, who was massive in this one. Had a very good game for Geelong, but has decided to retire. The Bulldogs did very well to win this one. But again, I think we said it last week, we've said it throughout a lot of the last 6 weeks, that the Bulldogs are such a response team that we're not so surprised that they came out and performed well. And against the second-rate Geelong side, we're not really too surprised by this result in the end, to be honest. And the Bulldogs were able to run away with 25-point winners. So the votes went to, in the end, the 3 votes went to Treloar, 2 votes to Isaac Smith, and the 1 vote to Tom Liberatore. Marcus Bontempelli missed out on votes here, which is very interesting because he is right up there with the Boundary Riders medal votes, which I will probably find a date early next week, if not on the weekend, to do a live stream of all the votes for the whole season. I'll see if I can do it when you're here as well, because I kind of want to do it with you here as well. Although on the weekend, maybe the best time. We'll see how we go. I will be mentioning it over our socials, which are on the screen, as you guys can see. But well done here. Marcus Bontempelli missing out on some votes.
He was close. He was definitely close. But I think Liberatore's game in the midfield, he did get a lot of clearances, and he did do a lot around the ground. And
he made a lot of just
Yeah,
cost his
we
team,
may have
his
cost
teammate
him
the
Ryder medal, the first Ryder medal, but
the inaugural Ryder medal. I mean,
yeah.
this could be huge for his career.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll be ruined the day he missed out on this. Anyway, after that, we get to another dead rubber. I know I keep on saying that, I'm sorry. But West Coast versus the Crows. And to West Coast credit, they were there with the Crows for 3 quarters.
Yeah.
But in the end, the Crows were able to run away winners. And to be honest, they did have, 38 scoring shots to 18. So they very well should have won this game, the Crows.
But
in the end of the day, Taylor Walker came along as well and nailed the 9 goals, which got him over the line, especially in that last quarter.
Yeah.
Look, I know a lot of things said about Jeremy McGovern playing on him and played him very poorly, and I'm going to agree with that. But on the other hand, I do think that Jeremy McGovern is not a key position back.
No, he's
so
not.
I'm not surprised that Taylor Walker was able to have a field day on him. But I think you got to be there and you got to play well to kick 9 goals no matter what. And it just proves that West Coast are in such a huge hole. And yes, they beat the Western Bulldogs the week before, but it's not. I don't think it's patching over any sort of wounds or cracks in the wall at all when they win one game against a team who didn't even show up. So in the Bulldogs last week. So West Coast have got so many questions to answer. I don't think Adam Simpson should survive this. Look, I know it's not all his fault, but I think a lot of things need to change at the club, and they can't just continue this cycle because this has been going on for years, and it continued on Saturday night with a pretty big drubbing in the end, despite only losing by 45 points. And again, we shouldn't be saying that a team only losing by 45 points is like a good thing. Yeah. So anyway, the Crows run away with a win. Obviously, they would be probably sitting in the 8 right now if the Ben Keys goal was allowed. Although we don't really know how that final 40 odd seconds would have gone if Ben Keys' goal wasn't allowed. They would have just scraped in the 8th spot, I believe, the Crows. Yeah. But anyway, to this game in question, the 3 votes obviously went to Taylor Walker with the 9 goals. 2 votes went to Rory Laird, and Josh Rochelle got the 1 vote. After that, we get to the first game on Sunday afternoon, which was Port Adelaide versus Richmond. Good game from Port Adelaide in the end. We were able to pull away in the last quarter to keep Richmond at bay. I was actually really impressed by Richmond's performance because I thought they were just going to come to Adelaide Oval and kind of put the cue in the rack for the season, with last week against North Melbourne really being the farewell game to their champions in Cochin and Riewoldt. So it was good to see Richmond really stand up in this game, but in the end, the better side ran away in the last quarter. With the votes quickly, you did give these, and I will ask you about them in a minute. But the 3 votes went to Connor Rozee, 2 votes to Zach Butters, and the 1 vote surprisingly has gone to Noah Bolter. So can you explain why you've given?
So Rozee and Butters, Rozee pretty much dominated the entire match really in the midfield. Butters was dominant in the second half, and through the midfield, and I gave 1 vote to Noah Bolter. He played such a selfless role in that game. He played on Aliir, pretty much stood next to him the entire match, did not give him an inch, and Aliir just played pretty poorly really. But because he had him manned up so tightly, he couldn't take many intercept marks. So it's a tactic that a lot of teams will use during the finals against Port Adelaide. And Port Adelaide, yes, they won by 30 points, but it wasn't convincing. Maybe that's a good sign that they did get the edge off them, but they didn't look convincing in my opinion, and I think they're going to get drubbed against Brisbane in the first week.
After that, we get to the Swans versus Melbourne, and the Swans, with everything to play for, weren't able to convert in front of the goals throughout the afternoon, and in the last quarter, when really the Swans, everyone would have thought that Sydney would have wanted to pull away, while Melbourne had really nothing to play for in this one, as they were going to be in 4th position no matter what. Did really well to pull away from the Swans and came out pretty convincing winners, and will be probably one of the hottest teams in the top 4 going into the first round of the finals.
Yeah.
So obviously the bad news is for Melbourne that Jake Melksham has came back with his scans today and has been confirmed that he has done his ACL. So that's really terrible news for him, because he's been one of their best performing forwards over the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And Bailey Fritsch did not look too convincing at the end of that game. I think his foot injury may have flared up again. He did get out. He did finish the rest of the game, and he did kick 5 goals.
Yeah, he kicked 5 and 3 in the last quarter, so it didn't seem to hamper him a lot. But it's just a concern
that extra week will help him.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting how that goes.
But anyway, with the votes now, we get the 3 votes to Errol Goulden, 2 votes to Bailey Fritsch, and the 1 vote to Jack Viney. So, I do know that Christian Petrarca, halfway through the third quarter, really stood up, but as a whole game, you've given Viney the 1 vote over him.
Yeah, well, for the other 2, Errol Goulden had 40 disposals, 2 goals. I think that was obvious. He got the 3 votes.
He was best of field, yeah.
Bailey Fritsch kicked 5 goals and 3 in the last quarter to split the game. And Jack Viney, I thought he played a better role. I thought he played a more selfless role. He had, I think, like 12 tackles. He had like 25 disposals, and I thought his game was more influential
than the other guys.
It was a more defensive role, because you let Oliver and Petrarca do what they do. You just need that defensive minded player, and I think Viney's role was more pivotal.
You said it first, the first time.
Yeah, in Melbourne's win.
Yeah. So with that being said, though, I will say we'll have a little bit of like a debrief of the final games at the end of the podcast. But yeah, I think Sydney are in a bit of trouble, especially going up against Carlton in the first week of the finals. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And the final game, which was probably the game set up as the game of the round if the Bulldogs were able to win, which was Carlton versus the Giants. And halfway at quarter time, I thought the Giants may well have just let themselves go there. The moment got to them too much.
Yeah.
Carlton looked like they were just going to run all over them. Charlie Curnow was all up and about. He just won the Coleman medal, and it looked like it was going to be a day for Carlton to just knock one team out of the finals, which happened to them last year. Thought they'd get a little bit of a revenge. But GWS really stood up and took it to Carlton, and it does show that Carlton can be beaten.
Yeah.
And one thing that did rear its little ugly head was Carlton's entries into the forward 50 was woeful at times in this one, which really hampered them in the first half of the season, which was bomb it on Charlie Curnow's head and make him fight for it.
Well, yeah, I think it just showed that when the chips are down and they need something to happen, they go back to their old game style. Bomb it long to Charlie and hopefully he takes a contested mark.
Yeah, and it looks like... And I think one thing as well that was mentioned, I think, in the broadcast, but also when I was streaming as well, is this final series, they're not going to be going up against West Coast and, the really crappy defences of the competition. Yeah. They're going to be going up against the best of the best. And when you're going up against these really good sides, they're not going to allow you to take easy marks inside the forward 50.
Yeah.
You have to find other avenues to goal, and this is what's going to be Carlton's downfall if they don't find some way to fix that up in the next couple of weeks. Now, GWS did everything they could. They did really well to win this game, and we gave the votes. I actually did watch this one, so I did give the votes for it. Stephen Canelio got my 3 votes, 2 votes to Toby Green and 1 vote to Tom Green. Now, Stephen Canelio was massive in this game. I will say that. He was really good in the midfield. Was really good like when the chips were down in that second quarter as well, when it got the Giants back into the game. He kicked a couple of really important goals for the Giants and was just, I think, the best player on the ground and really helped the Giants get over the line here. Toby Green, with his 4 goals, was massive as well and definitely helped them in that last quarter just pull away. And in the first half as well, he kicked 3 goals. And Tom Green, I think, was just good all afternoon. And I think they're going to be a pretty hard team to beat, the Giants, in the finals, especially in that first week, because it's interesting because St Kilda may well not look like the most informed team, but they have, I think, won 5 of the past 6 games. And I know a couple of those earlier ones were... 4 of the past 6 games. And I know a couple of those games earlier in that little period were against the bottom teams. But they have beaten a couple of good opposition lineups in the past month or so. And they did perform pretty well against Brisbane. So it will be a very interesting game, that one. I think that one's probably the 50-50 out of all the games, probably. Oh, actually, there probably are a few. But I think it's...
I think they're all 50-50 besides the Port Brisbane game, I think.
We will see about that. But what we wanted to do before talking about the finals games at the end of the season for the first round of the finals, we will be doing a full tips and stuff next week. But I just wanted to go quickly over what we believe was the coach of the year and the captain of the year so far. And I wanted to start with the coach of the year. You've got yours as well.
Yeah.
So the coach of the year, in my opinion, is not because you're sitting here, but I think it is Ken Hinkley. I've said this because I think at the start of 2023, he was the most under pressure coach. Basically, at the start of the season, especially here in Adelaide, if he wasn't going to make finals, he was going to be sacked throughout the middle of the year. And with the start of the season that they had, they won one of their first 3 games. It kind of looked all shot. Everyone was on his back. They were going to say, when's Ken Hinkley getting cut? He's going to be gone. But he was able to rally the troops against injuries and a lot of media scrutiny to rally Port Adelaide, get them on a 13-game winning streak, and was able in the end to get this side from a team that people thought would maybe finish mid-table if they were lucky to get into the top 4 and have a chance to maybe even pull out a premiership at the end of the year. So that's why I gave Ken Hinkley the Coach of the Year, in my opinion. And who did you say got it?
It was a close. I tossed up 3 options. Ken Hinkley, Adam Kingsley, and Michael Voss. I went with Michael Voss. I went with him because I think at about halfway during the season they were in a hole. They were screwed. All the Melbourne media were up against him. They were saying he should be sacked. He's not the man for the job. It's Carlton's board that's the problem and all that. He just blocked it out. And he made the game plan to change that they needed to be more tougher in the midfield, and they had to get their small forwards had to lift pretty much, and to go on a 9-game winning streak in the end.
I think it was 8. They would have got 9 if they beat the Giants.
Well, whatever it was, they had to make finals.
Well, no one saw it coming at the middle of the season.
Mid-season, like I said, they were saying to cut him. They were saying he's got to go.
Yeah.
But I think the way he rallied the troops and he got them to the finals, I think, in a home final at 5th. And, I think...
And one of the teams that have been thought of possibly getting a premiership from outside the 4 is probably a big call to make, but also, I mean, they're probably the most informed team going into the final series. Yeah. So, I agree with what you're saying. I think, out of me, I think it would have been those 3 as well. Craig McRae as well would have been up there for me, and... Chris Fagan probably as well for Brisbane. I mean, even John Longmire for the second half of the year did really, really well. And even Matthew Nix, to an extent, put the Crows in a big position to possibly make the finals. But, I think there are a few who could have made it, but that was our 2 picks. And then to the captains. I have picked, a little bit surprising we're a Sydney Swans shirt, but I've actually picked Toby Green as the captain of the year.
Yeah.
The reason why I've picked him for captain of the year is because this guy has been under a lot of scrutiny over a lot of his career, including from me. I think that he has had a career where he has had so much potential, but has also wasted a lot of it with, doing things off the ball, doing stupid acts on the field where, he's got suspended for things like punching players and all that sort of stuff, and has let his, anger or, white line fever just take the better of him at times. Yeah. But this year, they finally gave him the responsibility. You're going to be our captain at the Giants. Adam Kingsley gave him that. And he has stood up in so many ways for the club and just in every single game this year. I think when the Giants have been under the pump, we've seen him be able to pull out some sort of miracle goal or some sort of massive play. At the start of the year against the Swans, he was able to kick a goal to win the game. Against the Bulldogs over the past month or so, that was basically the game that got them to the finals, because if they lose that game, the Bulldogs would have that spot in the 8. He was able to get them down in Ballarat of all places in the second half to kick 5 second-half goals and pull them over the line. And basically, I think that everyone could have admitted that if they... I think a lot of people would have said that Toby Green could do it, but I think seeing it now, they kind of know they've made the right decision. And it's another cab on the rank for Adam Kingsley. And, he's very well been a good coach, but I think Toby Green's been the best captain of 2023.
Yeah. I'd say the same, pretty much for all those reasons. I'm going to go with Toby Green, but I'll just say that... Zach Merritt and Jordan Dawson, I think they were both very good this season. So I'd say those were the 3 best captains.
Yeah.
And I'd say Jordan Dawson was second, Zach Merritt probably third. I'd say Dawson, pretty much, there was a few games that he just put him on his back, and he took him home in a few of those games, and
almost got him over the line in a couple of others.
Yeah, even those games at the MCG that against, I think it was Collingwood and Melbourne, and the one at the Gabba against Brisbane, I thought his games were pretty good. Like he probably polled a lot of votes in those games in the Brownlow, and I thought his season was really good, and he'll win the I think it's the Malcolm Blight medal best and fairest for Richmond, for Crows.
Yeah.
So I think...
And I think, one of the things as well is Jordan Dawson, of all people, picking as captain, basically only picked up the year before from the Swans. Everyone was a bit surprised by that, but he's taken the leadership in spades at the Crows. And with Zach Merritt, I think that everyone he's probably thinking that he was the best player for the Bombers, but I don't think anyone would have realised how good a leader he would have been. And maybe over the last few weeks, it's probably been overshadowed because of how poor they've been performing, but the way he's almost changed his game in at 180 and over a space of, a couple of months, to become one of the better defensive midfielders in the comp, being able to help with his tackling pressure and stuff was really good to see for him as well. I think Dusty Moore also deserves a bit of a mention. He did really well as captain for Collingwood this year. And, Marcus Bontempelli as well for the Bulldogs. The amount of times that he was able to get them over the line was very good to see. I think that Toby Green was up there. And I think
Toby Green's number one.
That'd be number one for the whole year.
Yeah.
But now, guys, we will be getting to a little bit of a preview to the finals. Like I said, round one of the finals starts with Collingwood versus Melbourne. If you could just give us this won't be our official tips, but at this stage, one, who do you think will win, and two, how do you think it will be won?
I think this is the hardest one out of all of them. I think it's gonna be Collingwood. It'll be under a goal because it always seems to be Collingwood. I think it's just going to be one. I think if Nick Dacos plays, they'll win by 2 or 3 goals. If he doesn't play, they'll win by about a goal. And I just think their defence, Collingwood, is going to hold up a better against the Melbourne forward line. I just don't think, with Melton going down now, I still don't think they have the forward structure of Melbourne.
I think this game will be won by Collingwood. I will say, though, I think the game will be won in the midfield because I think both forward lines are probably their weakest line for both the sides. I just think that Collingwood, their rebound and their speed, their rebounding could be the way they could beat Melbourne, and getting there, like you said, with the forward line structure of Melbourne. Now they've lost Jake Melksham, who I don't think at the start of the year anyone would have thought that he would be the most important player in the forward line, but the way he's played over the past 8-10 weeks for Melbourne, being able to be a really good goal source for them, I think that is actually a really big loss. And I think Bailey Fritsch will be okay, but he is still a little bit underdone, and I think he did get a little bit lucky against the Swans that Nick Blakey was refusing to stand next to him in that last quarter to allow him to kick 3 easy goals, and I don't think Collingwood will allow that at all. So I will say Collingwood at this stage, but I think this game will be won in the midfield. After that, we get to Friday night, the first elimination final, Carlton versus the Swans, and I'll go first with this one. I'm going to tip Carlton, and I'll say that because I think one of those key forwards will get on top of the Swans. Because Sydney's defence can be well beaten if a key forward can get on top of them, a big bustling key forward. And I think Charlie Curnow, he wasn't in the best of form when they met the Swans earlier in the year, but now he's in really good form and he's been able to take over the Swans in years gone past. One thing I will say, though, is I think the Swans could do a little bit better at the MCG. They will be able to use their kicking skills to get around the ground and move the Carlton defence. But Sydney, I don't think, can win it in the midfield, and I think that's where one of their weaker lines is for the Swans this year. So I will say that I think Carlton will win it.
Yeah, I think Carlton will win. I think they'll dominate more in the midfield. I think that they're a bit more bigger, in my opinion. They're a bit more experienced with Hewitt, Cripps will be back, and Chera and Walsh. So they will be pretty good in there. I think, like you said, that they've just got a more... they've got the best forward duo in the game. And I just think Wiedering as well. He did hurt himself in that game against the Giants, but I think that the 2 weeks will give him plenty of time to recover. And I think Wiedering will play a big game against probably McDonald on him.
Yeah, maybe McLean. But I think that's one thing as well, is it will be interesting to see if Jacob Wiedering does get a week for that gouge that he did do on Toby Green. I will be interested to see how that goes. I don't know.
I think it'll be fine.
I think he'll be fine, but it will be interesting to see how that is adjudicated. So your tip Carlton, I've tipped Carlton. Next one, which I think is the biggest 50-50 out of all of them, which is St Kilda versus the Giants at the MCG. Now, this is kind of a disadvantage to players at the MCG for St Kilda, although they've had a couple of games this year where they have won there. I mean, they did beat Richmond over there, I think, earlier on in the year. This is just such a toughie. I think I'll let you go first because I really don't know.
I think it's the Giants. I think the St Kilda would have begged the AFL to play this at Marvel. I think they would have begged them to, but it was just never going to happen. But I still don't think they're going to get more than 60,000 to that game. I don't believe. Yeah. I still think they're going to get less than 60,000. But I think the Giants do win. I just think it's going to be interesting who plays on Toby Green. I think you're going to chuck Wilkie on him. I think you have to chuck Wilkie on him. But I think that their it's Sam Taylor. If he's not back, it will be an interesting game, I think.
Yeah, because Max King was rested for the last game of the season.
Yeah, so Max King will probably come in. Sam Taylor's the one that they think's not going to play the first week because it is a hamstring.
Yeah.
But they'll do everything possible to make him play. I think the Giants do have a better midfield, but it's going to be an epic midfield battle, I think, with Briggs and Marshall in the midfield.
That'll be a great battle.
I think that's the best duo combination. Matchup.
I think they've been the most
for the second half of the season.
Well, I think they've been the most informed ruckman basically the last 6-7 weeks of the season. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. I'm going to go the Giants as well. However, I don't think the Giants are that much better at the MCG than they are at Marvel. I think they would be a better team on Marvel Stadium as well. But nonetheless, I don't agree that there'll be much more than 50,000 at that game either because both the teams don't exactly have a huge supporter base.
Yeah.
And St Kilda don't struggle most weeks to fill up Marvel. So I don't know if they're going to be exactly filling up the MCG with that first final, but I think this one will be a really good watch.
There's also a 3:20 as well, which isn't a great time slot for the game. So I don't think it's going to be more than 60,000 there.
Yeah. So I'm going to be picking the Giants as well. And I just don't trust St Kilda at the moment. I think they are the most... I think they are the team. If the Bulldogs made it, I think they'd say they're the team that...
making up the numbers.
Yeah, making up the numbers. I feel like that's St Kilda as well. I feel like they really banked all their wins early in the season. And they were lucky that the fixture kind of fell into lap for them. That they were able to get North Melbourne, West Coast in those few period and Hawthorn as well. So I am going to pick the Giants because I think they're the better form team. But if St Kilda are to win this, I think they've had a really good year in saying that as well. From where they've gone, from where they were last year to even made the finals is a really good achievement for them. And I think Ross Lyon could definitely set them up over the next few years.
Yeah.
But after that, we get to the final game of the week one of the finals, the second qualifying final, which is Brisbane versus Port Adelaide. Now, I know you're pretty bullish on Port Adelaide. That this will be the only one you can't see Port Adelaide winning. But I do give Port Adelaide a slight chance here because there have been times where Brisbane have had these home finals and it's always been like, oh, they're easy wins. They're going to be making they're going to be making the next week pretty easily. But we've seen Brisbane have these home finals before. What was it? A couple of years ago, they went out in straight sets, playing 2 games in at the Gabba and going out straight away. I give Port Adelaide a little bit of a chance here, but I can't go past Brisbane. I'm not going to exactly bank on Port Adelaide. I'm not going to be tipping them at this stage. Maybe we'll see what happens. But Port Adelaide do have a couple of players coming back in the next few weeks. They do have Charlie Dixon coming back. And I think
he's about 70-30 to play, I reckon.
Okay.
Yeah, so he should come back, but
I think Scott Lysett could be a chance as well. He did play in the Sandful, so we will see how that goes out. I think Brisbane at this stage, probably.
Yeah, well, I've said Brisbane all along. So my reasoning behind it is also Marshall was laid out. He should be back. Dixon, you don't know. You need him back, and Scott Lysett you need back as well. And I think you also need Trent McKenzie. But it's a lot of players to come back. Does it ruin the structure? That's
Jeremy Finlayson needs to find some form as well.
Yeah, Finlayson I thought played really poorly. Sam Hayes was subbed out in that game against Richmond, and they did put Finlayson as the sole ruckman. Maybe that'll help him a bit, but I think the midfield battle is the one that's going to stop Port Adelaide as well. I think that Josh Dunkley, he'll go to Butters, and Jared Berry will either Dunkley or Berry will go to Butters. So,
alright, guys, that is the podcast for episode 26. Next week we'll be doing a full breakdown, like the official tips of the first week of the finals. We will be doing a live countdown of the Riders medal sometime throughout this week. I will be posting it everywhere. I think I can do posts on the community tab for YouTube, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. We'll be doing it like how the Brownlow's done, but maybe not so slowly. We'll try and keep it under a couple of hours, surely. But yeah, guys, that is all from us this week. Make sure to let us know down below if your team made the finals and who you believe can go all the way. Quick tip on who you think will win the premiership from here?
Brisbane.
I'll go with Collingwood as they're sitting top of the table at the moment.
Easy.
That's all from us, guys, so we'll catch you all next time.
See you later, guys.